How's it going, everyone, and welcome to the final installment of every single horror film that I saw in 2024. This is Buddy's House of Horror, the only horror podcast on the internet, and I want to thank you guys all for joining me on this very long journey of getting through every single horror film I saw in the year of 2024. But before we go ahead and get started, you gotta make sure you're subscribing to the show wherever you listen to the show, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get the show. Make sure you're subscribing, leaving me a 5-star rating and a review, clicking that thumbs up over on YouTube, subscribing to the YouTube channel, checking out my other stuff, and spreading the good word about Buddy's House of Horror, because it is the only horror podcast on the internet. And with that, it's time to get spooky. How's it going, boys and ghouls, and welcome to another exhilarating episode of Buddy's House of Horror podcast, and welcome to what I hope is the finale of every single horror film that I saw in 2024. We're starting in October and hopefully working our way through until the very, very end of the year. I did watch a ton of films in October, as you would imagine as a horror fan. So October does have a lot to cover, so we will get right to it here in a second. But today is a very gloomy summer day. Just to peel back the curtain a little behind the screens, it's a very dreary summer day today. It's quite cold outside, even though it is the month of June. I'm sitting in front of the fake fireplace that my wife got me for, I believe it was our anniversary last year, or maybe it was just a random gift last year, maybe like a tax return scenario. But I'm sitting in front of this fake fireplace in the middle of summer, which is crazy to me that in the middle of summer I'm sitting in front of a fake fireplace. We actually had tornado warnings last night, so it's been pouring down rain the past couple of days, but last night it got like real bad. So it is cold out in the middle of June. My cat is in the litter box currently, being annoying as hell, so I can hear him out of the corner of my ear. But I am hoping that you can't hear him on the microphone, but he's being an absolute menace. I'm sitting here in the morning, drinking my morning coffee in my Epcot Japan mug rather. It looks like it's actually from Japan, but it's actually just from Epcot. But this is one of my favorite mugs, but it is rather large for a coffee mug. Like, the actual opening part of it is quite large, so you need to drink your coffee rather quickly if you want to drink it when it is still warm. So I am going to take a sip for the working man. Ooh, that is good coffee from the Harbor Perk. We always get Perk coffee and bring it back home to the House of Horror. But we're going to get right started with the month of October. I hope you guys are strapped in for another gripping episode of the show. The first film that I watched in October was Let's Scare Jessica to Death, a classic title from the 70s. Had never watched it before. This was my first time watching it. Watched it with my wife. I believe this was actually her pick of the day. And something is after Jessica. Something very cold, very wet, and very dead. Newly released from a mental ward, Jessica hopes to return to life the way that it was before her nervous breakdowns. But when Jessica moves to a country house with her husband and a close friend, she finds a mysterious girl living there. Jessica's terror and paranoia resurface as evil folk forces surround her. There's not a ton to say about this film. It's just a very cool 70s vibey films. If you guys know me at all, you know that I love a 70s vibey film like this. These low budget, I love like films from the BBC from that era. I love made for television films from that era. I love films that just live and breathe the 70s, and this film definitely does that for me. So Let's Scare Jessica to Death. Solid 3 stars. And then I watched a film that it took 2 days for Jared and I to watch this. So I have it listed on my Letterboxd as the 8th, but it was actually partially on the 7th, partially on the 8th, because we definitely fell asleep when we were trying to watch VHS Beyond. In this film, I did a whole review on it as well. So again, it's not one I'm going to harp on too much, but I do want to touch on it a little bit because I feel bad doing these podcasts and being like, yo, here's a film that I watched, but I already did a video of it, so you should go listen to that one instead. So we will break this down ever so slightly. No Safe Space. The infinite playground of forbidden worlds and dangerous life forms offered by the sci-fi genre will lead to the biggest, maddest, bloodiest VHS ever. I disagree. There were a lot of things in this film that really didn't vibe with me, most of which is I wish that there was a little bit more. I forget. I'm trying to think of like what the word I'm trying to say is. I wish there was a little bit more quality control with some of these. I wish that. I don't know. I don't know what. It seems like just anybody can make a short film for VHS, the series. I don't know. There were a few things in here that I enjoyed. Of course, there was the segment that felt just like you were playing a Resident Evil game, so that one was cool. There was one directed by Justin Long, which had its ups and downs in it. The one with the, I don't know, like the CG aliens in the fucking apple orchard or whatever the hell was going on, like that was just awful. You need to know what your budgetary levels are. You need to know what you're actually capable of filming. If it's something that's going to look like shit doing CG, don't do it. Restrain yourself. Write and direct and shoot and edit within your means. I would never in a million years, at the level I'm at now, or even as like a small indie filmmaker, try to make something with heavy CG effects like that. Like, there's just no way that it's going to look good. I don't know. VHS Beyond, not one of my favorites. The next film I watched was with Jared. I believe this was the same evening, because I stayed the night in Ashtabula. So we watched part of VHS one night, watched part of it the next night. Then we needed a palate cleanser with some Criterions, in which we watched Oni Baba. Of course, the illustrious 1964 film. The most daring film import ever from Japan. While her son is away at war, a woman and her daughter-in-law survive by killing samurai who stray into their swamp, then selling whatever valuables that they find. Both are devastated when they learn that Kichi, the son, had died. But his wife soon begins an affair with a neighbor who survived the war, Hachi. The mother disapproves, and when she can't steal Hachi for herself, tries to scare her daughter-in-law with a mysterious mask from a dead samurai. This film's imagery, its vibe, its just overall atmosphere and tone is something to be seen. This film is one of the classics. This is one of my favorite Japanese horror films. Oni Baba, it's on Criterion. I believe it's streaming on HBO Max as well. But of course, we watched it on the Criterion Blu-ray. Phenomenal. I really enjoy Oni Baba. Up next was one of my favorite films of the year. Definitely top 2. I believe I ranked it number 2 of favorite films of the year. It was definitely 2 or 3. This, of course, is Terrifier 3, directed by Damien Leone, and of course, featuring David Howard Thornton as the titular Art the Clown, featuring little punk people in this film, although very briefly, and of course, featuring Lauren Lavera as Sienna Shaw, coming again for the second film in a row. Prepare to be terrified again. 5 years after surviving Art the Clown's Halloween massacre, Sienna and Jonathan are still struggling to rebuild their shattered lives. As the holiday season approaches, they try to embrace the Christmas spirit and leave the horrors of the past behind. But just when they think that they're safe, Art returns, determined to take their holiday cheer into a new nightmare. The festive season quickly unravels as Art unleashes his twisted brand of terror, proving that no holiday is safe. One of my absolute favorite Christmas horror films of all time is Terrifier 3. I think this film is great. The theater going experience was great, as I've said in other shows. the laughter that I had during some of the gore effects in this film is some of the most genuine and hard laughter I have ever had during a film. Terrifier 3, I think this is the first of 2 times that I watched it that year, so it will be coming up again later on in the show, but Terrifier 3 is definitely one to check out. Another film I watched was Hell at Heathridge, which is a film that I had worked on and was showing it to Miles for the first time. And I will be reading the tagline on Letterboxd, which is "Evil is Real." Obsessed with obscure modern tragedies, wealthy Mr. Yates hires 5 college drama students to recreate a murder-suicide that occurred on their campus 20 years prior. As the actors prepare for the show of their lives, unfortunate events follow them, and by the end they realize one thing: evil is real. Obviously, I worked on this film. Not going to talk about it too much. And again, it's another one that I did a whole show on. So yeah, there is that. The next film that I watched was a film called The Devonsville Terror. This is one that I've been wanting to check off my list for a long time. This is a classic Donald Pleasance film from the early 80s. 300 years ago, they burned her as a witch. Now she's back. Dr. Worley investigates a 300-year-old witch's curse in the New England town of Devonsville. 3 liberated, assertive women move into the town, which angers the bigoted, male-dominant town fathers. One of the women is a reincarnation of the witch who proceeds to exact revenge on all of them. There's a very disturbing pig sequence in the film, so I will say, if this is a film that you plan on checking out, and you don't like pigs, I know a lot of people are scared of, like, the pig mask from, like, Slipknot and stuff, and scared of, like, the pig mask in Saw. So there is a very disturbing pig sequence in this film. So that is something to just throw out there right off the bat. The opening credits go hard as hell with all the Puritans walking through the forest and torches like they're on their way to tribal council. It's so hard when they attach the girl to the wheel, they light a wheel on fire, and then push the wheel down the hill. Ultimately, this film ends up being a little bit of a mixed bag. I did give it 3 stars. I do love a lot of the stuff going on in this film. I can tell that it is not going to be for everyone, but it's just another fun, moody, early 80s horror film, something that I really enjoy quite a bit. This next string of films are going to go very quickly because I went through a string of just watching a lot of silent films. I found a list on Letterboxd or somewhere where it was just kind of breaking down every horror film ever made in order. So I was just trying to knock a bunch of them off of the list. The first one from 1896 is a 1-minute short film called A Nightmare. A man has a fantastical nightmare involving, among other things, a grinning, malevolent moon. Not a ton to say about it. Go check it out. It's only a minute long, so me talking about it is going to be longer than you actually watching the film. The next one is called The Merry Skeleton, also from 1898. Also only 1 minute long. A skeleton dances joyously, often collapsing into a heap of bones and quickly putting itself back together. The next film was The Devil in the Convent from 1899. So this is 1 year after, and the films are getting a little bit longer. This one is a whopping 3 minutes. A priest is officiating at a convent when suddenly he is transformed into the devil, who frightens away the nuns and turns the place into pandemonium. Coming up next is How It Feels to Be Run Over. This one is from 1900. As the camera looks down an open road, a horse and a carriage approaches and passes by to one side of the field of view. Soon afterwards, an automobile comes up behind the road, straight towards the camera. As it gets nearer and nearer, the occupants start to wave frantically, but can a collision be avoided? You'll have to watch the film to find out. The next is The Infernal Cauldron, which I've seen before, but I wanted to watch it again. It's only 2 minutes long. It's very cool. A green screen demon places a woman and 2 courtiers into a flaming cauldron. There is a colored version that's on HBO Max. There is obviously the black and white version, which you can watch all over the place. The Red Spectre was next. This is 1907, so this is going a few years into the future, and this one is the longest one so far, by far, at a whopping 8 minutes. A demonic magician attempts to perform his act in a strange grotto, but is confronted by a spirit who opposes him. Another great silent film for the list. And that was all the silent films that I watched in that little string right there, that little mini string of silent films that I watched on October 16th. On the 17th, we're bringing it back to the classics, and I decided to watch one of my favorites of all time, which is The Shining by Stanley Kubrick from 1980, although you cannot tell me a more 70s film than The Shining. Although it was released in 1980, this is one of the most 70s films ever. A masterpiece of modern horror. Jack Torrance attempts a caretaker job at the Overlook Hotel, where he, along with his wife Wendy and his son Danny, must live isolated from the rest of the world for the winter. But they aren't prepared for the madness that lurks within. There's not a whole lot I can say about this film that I haven't said before in the past. It's mind-blowing to me I only gave this film 4.5 stars. That is absolutely insane. I'm bumping this up to 5 literally right now. It's going to 5. That's a 5-star film. Don't know why I had it 4.5 for so long. But The Shining, obviously one of the greats of all time. One of the greatest horror films in general. Definitely my favorite Kubrick film. Definitely my favorite Stephen King adaptation, although Stephen King himself does not like it. Just like I'm not sure if he's a fan of the next film that I watched. I was on a little bit of a Stephen King kick, and I next watched the 1990 version of It, the TV miniseries, but everyone just knew it as a film. I watched it originally thinking it was just a very long film. The Master of Horror unleashes everything that you were ever afraid of. In 1967, outcast kids known as the Losers Club fight an evil demon who poses as a child-killing clown. 30 years later, they reunite to stop the demon once and for all when it returns to their hometown. Obviously, highly influential film, not only within the horror world, but just in general, just the lasting impact that this film and this book had on society is just like never ending. Like, you can find it everywhere. I mean, obviously, you have stuff today like Stranger Things, where it's a group of kids coming together. Like, I feel like it might not have been the first film and book that sort of focuses on a group of ragtag kids, but it really is the one that put it in the forefront. Whenever you think of a group of young kids in a movie, like A Gang of Friends, you normally think of It. You normally think of if not It, you're thinking of stuff like other Stephen King works, like Stand By Me or like whatever. Like, this one is an all-time classic. The next day, I rewatched a film from earlier that year, which was Late Night with the Devil, and I watched it the way that I intended on originally watching it, late at night as a late night broadcast. I believe I started it at 11:30 at night, which is typically when your Jimmy Fallon's and Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert, Jay Leno, whatever the case is. It's normally that 11:35 slot, because I think the first 5 minutes they do a little recap of the news and your weather for the week, and then at 11:35, that's when that late night talk show comes on the TV. That's when I popped on Late Night with the Devil. Do not adjust your set. A live broadcast of the late night talk show in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. I talked about this film at length in other shows, but I thought this film was really, really good. I don't know why it got a lot of hate and a lot of people thought it was boring or whatever. The only real critique that I had of this film was the CGI gobbled up mess that happens at the end, and the fact that they were lazy and used AI generated art when you literally could have paid a 15-year-old high school graphic designer $20 to make some shit. The AI in this is totally inexcusable and lazy, and I did not particularly care for the, you know what I'm talking about. The CG mess. I hate a CG mess. Next up is my favorite film of all time that I watched on the 19th for some reason. I think I just felt like having it on. Was Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. The night he came home. 15 years after murdering his sister on Halloween night in 1963, Michael Myers escapes from a mental institution and returns to a small town of Haddonfield, Illinois, to kill again. A modern masterpiece. Although it's 50 years old basically at this point, but a masterpiece nonetheless. Halloween. Next, I watched Hauntedween, which was an episode, I think that this was our finale of Hidden Horror for the season, was Hauntedween. When fantasy becomes a deadly reality. One Halloween night, a little girl visiting the Berber family's House of Horrors attraction is brutally hacked to pieces by their young son, Eddie. Having fled the scene, Eddie is taken away by his mother to live in a solitude at a remote cabin. 20 years later, the state college's Phi Sigma fraternity are desperately trying to raise some cash, so they decide to throw a fundraiser party for their peers. In the midst of festivities, a mysterious figure arrives at the door, offering them the key to the old abandoned Berber house and suggesting that they turn it into a haunted house. Seizing the opportunity, the youngsters quickly set about transforming the property into an elaborate and potentially lucrative Halloween attraction. Little do they realize that Eddie Berber has returned home and intends to have some All Hallows Eve fun of his own, setting up his own kill room where the line between fantasy and reality quickly becomes blurred. From everyone who's seen this film, they enjoy it quite a bit. You have to be in a certain state of mind to watch it. This is not a film for everybody. This is not a film for the mainstream horror fan. This is a film for the shot-on-video, classic, loves to watch trash horror fan. Is all about Hauntedween. The next film that I watched was The Vampire Lovers, which was an adaptation, a loose adaptation of Carmilla, which was one of the first vampire novels. This was from 1970, an erotic nightmare of tormented lusts that throb into headless, undead bodies. In the heart of Styria, the Karnstein family, even after their mortal deaths, rise from their tombs spreading evil in the countryside in their lust for fresh blood. Baron Hartog, whose family are all victims of the Karnstein vampirism, opens their graves and drives a stake through their diabolical hearts. One grave he cannot locate is that of the legendary, beautiful Marcella Karnstein. Years of peace follow that grisly night until Marcella reappears to avenge her family's decimation and satisfy her desire for blood. So very, very loose adaptation of Carmilla. I love the gothic sets. Everything in this film looks absolutely beautiful. The architecture, there's some shots of the moon, there's tons of shots of fog. There's great camera movement in the film as well. There's a moment where Laura is screaming in bed, and the shot starts out on a candle in the room to show the gothic imagery. Then it rolls out and shows Peter Cushing running into the room to see what the matter is. There's a lot of really unique techniques that they use in this film. It's just an all-around great, vibey 70s vampire film that I love. I love 70s films, as you know. Love vampire films. Perfect. And it was the perfect double feature because the next film that my wife and I both watched was Lust for a Vampire. A vampire's lust knows no boundaries. In 1830, the Karnstein heirs used the blood of an innocent to bring forth the evil of that is Marcella, or as she was in the 1710s, Carmilla. The nearby finishing school offers rich pickings not only in blood of the young ladies, but also with the headmaster who is desperate to become her disciple. And the equally distraught and even more foolish author, Richard Lestrange. So this film obviously has a lot of similarities. There's some name changes in here. The main actress who plays Carmilla is credited with both roles, obviously, as a different name. There's the Countess. This whole thing takes place in this luxurious hotel setting. I love the setting of this film. I will say that this film was pretty much equally as enjoyable as The Vampire Lovers. I would give The Vampire Lovers the slight edge just because of the Peter Cushing factor. But these films are a perfect double feature. just like the double feature that we did the day before Halloween night with Midnight Miles, where he brought over some more very illustrious and infamous films. The first of which is Bone Hill Road, which is another film about werewolves that Miles is absolutely obsessed with. I believe he bought several copies of Bone Hill Road before he even watched it, because he's like, this would make the perfect Christmas gift for a bunch of my friends. So he purchased several copies of this solid 1-star film because he thought it would be a great Christmas gift for people. Stranded but not alone. A young couple becomes stranded in the woods where they encounter a werewolf and a house of horrors. I don't even know how to begin to talk about this film. There is just so much. I don't know. It's one of those film things within your means. Like, I believe that there's supposed to be multiple werewolves in this film, but I think you really only see one at a time because they probably only had like one costume. I didn't even know where to begin with this film. And after that, we watched another werewolf film, which, to its credit, has a hard as fuck cover, but is not the greatest film throughout either, by the same director as Bone Hill Road. Nearly, I believe, almost like 2 decades. Moonchild was in 94, and Bone Hill Road was in 2017. So a significant gap in time between these two werewolf films from the same director. A full moon can be fatal. A government agent cursed by lycanthropy. Lycanthropy. I always suck at pronouncing that word. I suck at pronouncing a lot of words, if you haven't noticed. If you've been listening to this show long enough, you know that I stumble over my words pretty constantly, all of the time. Goes on a dystopian-fueled adventure to find his son, who has parted ways with his father. He's barely a werewolf in this film, too. Like, this film was not great. I didn't even know what to say about Moonchild. I don't even know what to say about these films. Miles is a champion of them. And then on Halloween night, I got into my Halloween costume, which I think I did a pretty good job this year with my Halloween costume. I went as Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan, and I watched Halloween on my front porch on my VCR and handed out candy to people. It was a great time. So I'm not going to read the description of Halloween again, but I watched Halloween again on October 31st. And now we're leading into the month of November, which the first 2 films that I watched in November were a double feature of Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 at the Lorraine Palace Theater, one of my favorite theaters to go to watch a film. It's a place that needs to be seen to be believed. It is a very, very vintage theater. It's got a big chandelier in it. It's got a lobby area that's very cool, very throwback. I love going to this theater at any opportunity that I have. I've only had the chance to go there a couple times. They don't do films very often. But whenever they do, I always try to make it to it if it's a film that I'm interested in seeing, and in which case, a double feature of Terrifier 2 and 3 is definitely something that is right up my alley. I'm not going to talk about Terrifier 3 because I just talked about it prior to this, but Terrifier 2, Who's Laughing Now? A year after the Miles County Massacre, Art the Clown is resurrected by a sinister entity. Art returns home where he must hunt down and destroy teenage Sienna and her younger brother Jonathan on Halloween. As the body count rises, the siblings fight to stay alive when uncovering the true nature of Art's evil intent. I love Terrifier 2. I probably didn't like it as much the second time that I watched it, just because I've had the opportunity to sort of pick out a lot of its flaws over the last couple years, like how long it is, how a little bit unnecessarily convoluted it can be at times. But I definitely really enjoy it too. I do give the slight edge to Terrifier 3. I think Terrifier 3 is probably the best out of the franchise. But seeing both of them back to back in a double feature scenario in a theater was something that was truly, truly special. I had a great night watching both of these in theaters. And again, I love the Lorraine Palace Theater. I hope to go back there sometime soon. I hope that they do another double feature. The last film double feature that they did, I was unfortunately not able to go to. I think they did Evil Dead 1 and 2 a few months back, but I was out of town at the time, unfortunately wasn't able to go. But I'm hoping once it gets closer and closer to Halloween this year, as I said, I'm recording this a little bit early on, I'm hoping that they do some more double features, and I will definitely be there when and if they do. The next film, if you remember from last year, I did an episode where it was films that I wanted to see, films I couldn't wait to check off my list. And I'm happy to say that, ladies and gentlemen, I finally saw in November of that year The Substance. The Substance was a film that ended up being one of my favorites of the year. Of course, starring the illustrious Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley with I won't say cameo, but a supporting role by Dennis Quaid. The Substance. Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? A fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell-replicating substance that temporarily, Jesus Christ, can I ever say a word correctly? If a word has more than one syllable, chances are I'm pronouncing it wrong on the first try. Temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. What is there to say about The Substance that hasn't been said 100 times before? It is essentially a remake of The Lost Woman and a remake of The Rejuvenator, but it is done so much better than its predecessors. There is a lot of gore in The Substance. There's a lot of trippy camera angles and colors and just all around, it feels like a drug trip. Just like the character is using illegal substances, you feel like you're on illegal substances when you are watching this film. The Substance was easily one of my favorites of the year. A film I watched after that was another one checking off the short silent films from my list, and this was Danse Macabre. Not the ghost song, but the film from 1922. 8 minutes long, a whopping 8 minutes. So you can listen to the song Danse Macabre twice whilst watching the film. The Black Death is ravaging Spain. As Camille Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre plays on the soundtrack, a mix of animation and acted scenes tells the story of youth and love meeting one night. They dance, embrace, and kiss. As the night wears on, exuberant death, a skeletal figure with a violin, pursues the couple. They try to elude him. Eventually, love swoons. Youth is powerless to protect her. Is she doomed? You'll need to commit 8 minutes of your life to find out. The next film I watched was The Merry Frolics of Satan, which by far, out of these short films that I've been watching from the silent area, this one was by far the longest one that I had watched up until this point. This was a solid 22 minutes. Two travelers are tormented by Sainted from inn to inn and eventually experience a buggy ride through the heavens courtesy of the devil before he takes one of them down to hell and roasts them on his spirit. Great film. Merry Frolics of Satan. Very good, very trippy little silent film. Has some great effects in it. Very fun to watch. Took a little bit of a break from horror films for about a week and a half until I finally saw in theaters Heretic. I saw it a little bit late in its theater run. I believe me, my wife, and our friend Casey were the only ones in the cinema to watch it. I thought the film was just alright. There's a lot of people who praise it as one of the greatest horror films of the year. A lot of people on the other flip of the coin didn't like it. I thought it was right down the middle. Definitely makes you think about blueberry pie in a little bit of a different way. I think they even made blueberry scented candles in partnership with this film. Question everything. Two young missionaries are forced to prove their faith when they knock on the wrong door and are greeted by the diabolical Mr. Reed, becoming ensnared in his deadly game of cat and mouse. There's a lot of philosophical talk in this film. There's a lot of metaphor. And obviously, if you are not even a religious person, there's a lot of stuff in this film for most people to enjoy. The stuff that I didn't like about it is just the characters' decisions that they make leading up to going in the house are just so... I don't know. I don't like when characters make blatantly dumb decisions in films that are supposed to be taken seriously. I'm all for a campy film where people make dumb decisions, but when your film is really portraying itself seriously and you're making your main characters make some very questionable decisions, like entering this man's home. I don't know. It's hard for me to get behind it. There's a lot about the film that I like a lot. I like a lot of the discussions in the film. There's a lot that sort of plays with. There's like a mystery involved. So like, are things happening supernaturally, or is this dude just doing very, very good gaslighting and trickery in this film, or is there something actually supernatural going on? It's up to the characters to find out. So I'll let you guys watch the film and see what's really going on in that film. The next film I watched is not a horror film, but it does deal with the supernatural, so I will just bring it up briefly. Ghost Cat Anzu, which was an anime film about Ghost Cat Anzu, who goes through a spectacular adventure through hell in the demon realm, and all hell ultimately breaks loose on Earth. This cat is basically a anime cat version of Peter Griffin. I thought this film was very enjoyable, a good solid one-time watch, or potentially a two-time watch if I'm with friends. I don't see myself really seeking it out on my own. But if I'm around people who want to watch it, that is something I would very easily want to do. Coming up as the last film of September, a film that was delayed multiple times. I believe this was in my list of films that I want to see as well, but it was just getting delayed and I didn't get the chance to watch it. It was delayed several years. Like, I think this was supposed to originally come out in 2022. But it just kept getting pushed back and pushed back, and I knew that wasn't a good sign. I knew that meant the film was not going to be that great, but either way, I needed to check out the remake of Salem's Lot. Be careful what you invite inside. Author Ben Mears returns to his childhood home of Jerusalem's Lot, only to discover his hometown is being preyed upon by bloodthirsty vampires. I gave the film a solid 1.5 star. That's where it deserves to be. I do see ratings all through the gambit. I see a lot of ones, but I think the highest rated person on my Letterboxd who I follow gave it 4 stars. I think actually there's a 4.5. So, I mean, there's a lot of people that liked this film. This film definitely has an audience, but that audience is not me. As a big fan of the original film, I don't think that this one really holds a candle to that. I have not seen the Rob Lowe version in many, many years, so I can't really say if this is better than that one. I presume that the Rob Lowe version is better than this one as well, but who is to say? I'm not exactly sure, but there is a great scene. Well, I won't even say it's a great scene. There's a great setting in this film that take place at a drive-in. This film is basically Pixar's Salem's Lot. The CG vampires in this look absolutely horrible. I don't know. I don't know. I feel bad for it because I know that they may have tried to do something good with this. I don't know if it, again, was like budgetary restraints or not being able to. I don't really know what the disconnect was. I'm not going to pretend like I know what the disconnect was, but either way, this sort of failed on a lot of cylinders, which is a shame. I wish that there would have been a better way to do this. I wish that you could remake Salem's Lot, because the original one has a lot of problems. The original one was a TV miniseries. It's very long. I love Tobe Hooper's interpretation of it, but it's not the most entertaining film from beginning to end, just due to the nature of the runtime. So maybe 10, 20 years from now, we'll get another remake of Salem's Lot, but until then, the original one from the 70s, the 50-year-old one, is still the premier way to watch it. And that is wrapping up the month of November. We've just got December to get through. And December, just looking at it, is a pretty long month. I don't know how many of the films in this month are particularly horror films, but just looking at it, this looks like a long month to get through. But after that, we are finally done with 2024, and we can start talking about the films that I saw in 2025. But let's get head started right into December. So the very first film that I watched this long, lonely December, shout out Neck Deep, was a film that I've talked about literally to death thousands of times on this channel, so I'm going to be skipping over it ever so briefly after the description, because this film is, of course, 1922's Nosferatu, a symphony of horror. The mysterious Count Orlok summons Thomas Hutter to his remote Transylvanian castle in the mountains. The eerie Orlok seeks to buy a house near Hutter and his wife, Ellen. After Orlok reveals his vampire nature, Hutter struggles to escape the castle, knowing that Ellen is in grave danger. Meanwhile, Orlok's servant Nock prepares for his master to arrive at his new home. home. Again, talked about it thousands and thousands of times. After that, a few days later in theaters, I actually did a double feature. It's very rare for me to do a double feature in theaters, but when I do get the opportunity to do it, it's one of my favorite things to do, to just see a film and then walk almost immediately into the next film. And this one, I will say, was a loose horror double feature. They both feature, supernatural creatures, one of which is definitely not a horror film, but we will mention it very, very briefly. But the first film that I watched that day was a film that I think was actually incredibly underrated last year. Like, this film, I think, it kind of slipped under the radar. Not a lot of people saw it. I actually quite enjoyed the film. The film was called Werewolves, directed by Stephen C. Miller. It's a nice, no-nonsense film. It is a little bit generic. It feels very, Resident Evil-esque to me. It would make a great video game. Like, the film Werewolves would make an amazing video game. They will hunt you. A year after a supermoon's light activated a dormant gene, transforming humans into bloodthirsty werewolves and causing nearly 1 billion deaths, the nightmare resurfaces as the supermoon rises again. Two scientists attempt to stop the mutation but fail, and must now struggle to reach each other's family homes. This film has a villain that you truly hate. You want to see this villain get his comeuppance, and you want to see the hero survive. I think this film did very, very good with its characters. Again, it is a little bit of a generic story, like I said, but it's just how much mayhem, how much fun, how much excitement can you have in an hour and a half. In this film, it perfectly does its job. It's a film I would revisit, maybe not every year, but this is a good, solid, modern werewolf film. Certainly, I enjoyed it much better than the Lee Winnell Wolfman film, which we'll get to in 2025 when we review that list. But the werewolf film, I talked about it last year too, during my ranking of the 50 films that I saw that year. It ranked pretty high on the list. It wasn't in the top 10, I don't believe, but it was pretty high on the list. It was a pretty good film to watch. And it was a good double feature, which I did with Wicked. I finally saw Wicked after this. It was a little bit late. Of course, definitely not a horror film, but does feature witches in it. So we'll skip that one over ever so briefly. My apologies. The next few films I saw were horror films. They were not horror films. I saw Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which I thought was a great time. And then it was gearing up to watch Nosferatu on Christmas. I wanted to catch my wife up on the Nosferatus of the past. So obviously, as I mentioned, we watched the original film, and then today on the 20th, we watched Nosferatu the Vampire, the Werner Herzog version. It is fear and fun. It is a scream of horror and a cry of delight. It is Nosferatu the Vampire. A real estate agent leaves behind his beautiful wife to go to Transylvania to visit the mysterious Count Dracula and formalize the purchase of a property in Windsor. This film, I have only seen it a couple of times, and each time I see it, I think I like it a little bit better. It's definitely not as good to me as the original film. I enjoy the original film pretty much more than a lot of films. But I did quite enjoy the Werner Herzog version. It's very dreamlike. I feel like this with every single every vampire film. You need to be in a certain state of mind to watch it, especially the Nosferatu films. Each one is so strikingly different that I feel like you need to be in the right headspace to this. This one's a very slow-moving film. Nosferatu does look creepy as fuck in this. The atmosphere in this is amazing. The opening credit scene kind of sticks with me forever, just sort of the world building of this. You feel like you're in this world. You don't feel like you're watching a film. At some point, I might break down all the Nosferatu films and kind of give my opinions on all of them. I did watch the sequel to this film for the very first time this year, which is Nosferatu in Venice, which I did not give a very good score. This is a 1.5 star on Letterboxd. But basically, Professor Paris Cantilano visits Venice to investigate the last known appearance of a famous vampire, Nosferatu, during the Carnival of 1786. The behind the scenes of this film is out of control. Klaus Kinski is a total maniac. Didn't even cut his hair for the film. He looks nothing like he did in the original film. I do not recommend Nosferatu in Venice. Next film that I watched was actually a series, but I'm going to treat it as if it was a film because I'll mention it here. It was the Creep Tapes. I watched all of the Creep Tapes in one night. This, of course, is the third iteration of the Creep franchise. There was Creep 1, which I thought was a pretty solid found footage serial killer film. There was Creep 2, which sort of took the formula and flipped it on its head because the audience is now in on what's going on, and the main character in the film is now in on what's going on because he straight up says at the beginning of the film, "Hey, I'm trying to kill you." And the Creep Tapes is a series which I think this format actually kind of works a little bit better as the TV series because it's just very short and brief. Like, you don't really need to have a lot of the stuff in there. It's kind of like quick moving, and you can get a lot in this, and it's fun seeing all the scenarios he puts these characters in. A secluded serial killer lures videographers into his world with the promise of a paid job documenting his life. Unfortunately, as the tape rolls, the killer's questionable intentions surface, and with increasingly odd behavior, and the victims will learn that they may have made a deadly mistake. I have to sneeze. I sneezed. Excuse me for that. I have to sneeze again. I think it's going to go away. It went away. Okay, so I'm going to forget to cut that out. But the Creep Tapes, I gave 4 stars. I think this is such a fun series. Like, every episode puts him in unique situations. There's an episode where he goes to visit his mother. There's an episode where he's in an apartment, like he's breaking into an apartment. There's one where he's out in the desert with this bird watcher. Like, everything in this series is just so fun. Like, these episodes are good to just kind of put on. I haven't done it yet, but they'd probably be good to just put on just like as a little bit of a 20-minute like time waster kind of thing, just some quick entertainment while you're having your dinner, because I like to eat like a medieval king. I must have entertainment. The Creep Tapes is great. I would love to break down the entire Creeps franchise at some point in the future. And that was the last horror film that I watched before Christmas. And on Christmas, obviously, I watched the 2024 new release Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, my favorite film of last year. Succumb to the Darkness, a gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. This is a film that was an easy 5-star, and I think that at some point I'm going to need to do a full review of this film. I did rewatch it recently. I rewatched it a couple months ago, and I watched the extended cut, which is almost indiscernible from the original cut. So I don't know why they just didn't release it the way that in the extended cut format, or just not even release the extended cut, because the changes are so minimal. The only thing that's really different is there's like an extended scene where Nosferatu is giving a little bit extra lore about the gypsies, which I think you could take it or leave it. Like, I don't think the extended cut makes that much of an impact on the original film, obviously, which is why they cut it out. So it's just personal preference. Do you want that extra 2 to 3 minutes, or do you not care? So for me, like, just because I am an insane fan, I do, when I rewatch it again, I will be rewatching the extended version just to get the full scope of everything. But it's not make or break. I think you can go without it. It's fine. It's just for the most hardcore of hardcore fans are going to want that in there, because in the grand scheme of things, it does not matter very much. But I do want to do a full review of the Nosferatu franchise and of this film at some point in the future. And that was actually a film that I watched on Christmas, on opening day. Did not have the greatest experience seeing it in theaters. Kind of saw it at an older theater. So I did actually go rewatch it in theaters a few days later. But in between that, I watched a film that I meant to check off my list for many, many years, and I finally did it, which is Eyes Without a Face from 1960. Watched it on my Criterion that I've had sitting on the shelf for a plethora of years, but finally whipped it out and watched it. And I thought it was just okay. I thought it was very good. 3.5 stars. It's not like a 5-star masterpiece or anything, but I did quite enjoy it. Of course, it's very well known for the full face transplant scene. But beautiful women were the victims of his fiendish facials. I'm going to butcher this name, but I'll just say the doctor is riddled with guilt after an accident that he caused disfigures the face of his daughter, the once beautiful Christine, who outsiders believe is dead. The doctor, along with accomplice and laboratory assistant Louise, kidnap young women and bring them to the mansion. After rendering his victims unconscious, the doctor removes their faces and attempts to graft them onto Christine's, whatever her name is. Not a ton to really say about this one. It is one that I would rewatch in the future. Speaking of rewatching things in the future, I did say that I saw Nosferatu again in theaters. This time I saw it in IMAX. It was a much better viewing experience the second time around, except for the fucking loser sitting next to me who was playing on his phone the entire time. That was a huge distraction, so good thing I was wearing a hoodie, because I kind of put the hood up and blocked him out of the way of watching the film. Next, I was really trying to round out watching 50 films for the year. So I watched a lot of new releases on these last few days of December to sort of round out the year. And a lot of them, in my opinion, were quite horrible. Speaking of the shit, we're going to be talking about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, Miles' favorite film of 2024. Friends will gather to take revenge. 5 months following the murders, Christopher Robin struggles to maintain a regular life while dealing with PTSD. However, deep within the 100-acre wood, a destructive rage grows as Pooh, Piglet, Owl, and Tigger find their home and their lives endangered after their existence is revealed. This film I thought was slightly better than the original, but that is not saying much because they were both absolutely abysmal. And the film I saw after that was another Disney horror film called The Mousetrap, which is centered around a person wearing a Mickey Mouse mask. But they're very self-aware that it is a Mickey Mouse mask. Like in this film, there is a Star Wars credit crawl at the beginning with a bunch of misspelled words. Like, this film was very, very self-aware of what it was doing, unlike Winnie the Pooh films where they were taking themselves way too seriously for some reason. This is not a fun house. It's Alex's 21st birthday, but she's struck at the amusement arcade on a late shift, so her friends decide to surprise her. But a masked killer dressed as Mickey Mouse decides to play a game of his own with them, where she must survive. This film I thought was incredibly disjointed. Again, I've talked about it on other shows before. But it kind of sort of cuts back and forth between the survivor and what happened. So you're constantly getting broken up by like a police procedural type scene. Not great. Not a great film, not really worth talking about. Much like Woman of the Hour, directed and starring Anna Kendrick. In 1978, a serial killer appeared on a live TV show as a bachelor on The Dating Game, but the only people who suspected were the women he pursued. An aspiring actress crosses paths with a prolific serial killer in 1970s LA when they are cast on an episode of The Dating Game. Again, a film for me which I felt was a bit disjointed. Did not like the film from beginning to end. I do not really know the historical aspects of this. Like, I didn't look into the backstory. I know it is based on a true story. But I wanted to watch this film because I thought the majority of it was going to be on this dating show. Much like Jason Takes Manhattan. You think a lot of the film's taking place in Manhattan, but that is not the case. It's a lot of leading up to The Dating Game, and there's a lot after The Dating Game. Like, the Dating Game portion of this is a very, very small aspect of the film, which was a little bit disappointing for me. And then I watched another Nosferatu film that came out in 2024, and this one was directed and features a lot of the same crew and cast who made the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari remake, where they simply green screened new actors into the old film. That is the same case with this Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. The Vampire Lives. The original 1922 Nosferatu is regarded as one of the most important films ever made and a cornerstone of the vampire genre. Now, over 100 years later, the bloodthirsty Count Orlok rises once again to cast an unearthly shadow in a feature-length retelling of the classic horror masterpiece. Faithfully presented in the style of a Golden Age horror and combining scenic elements from the original film with new sound and music, this all-new Nosferatu is a never-before-seen cinematic remix of the timeless vampire tale, and an otherworldly revisit to the land of ghosts and phantoms, where blood is life. I did not particularly enjoy this film. I don't really know what else to say about it besides breaking it down scene by scene, but it's literally a green screen shot for shot remake of the original film, only with their own dialogue. Like, it's going off of dialogue that was obviously not in the original film. So the acting in this film is quite weak. The dialogue, the writing is quite weak. I do like Doug Jones vaguely as the vampire, but that's because I like Doug Jones and everything. But this is not the Nosferatu film to watch. Just like the last horror film that I saw in 2024 is not the right horror film to watch. The film is called Devon, and it was directed by JWoww. Devon's parents never stopped searching for answers after her disappearance from a notorious asylum. Years after the incident, a mysterious website drives 5 adventurers to the abandoned asylum where she was last seen. What do you want me to say about this film? What do you want me to say about the JWoww horror film? There's not a whole lot to say. We're moving on to 2025. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening to every film that I saw in 2024. I know it was quite the journey, and I'm happy to see you guys on the other side. Well, that's about it for this time, guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to every single film that I saw within the year of 2024. Again, if you guys haven't already, please make sure you're subscribing to the channel, leaving me a rating and a review, and telling all of your friends about Buddy's House of Horror, because Buddy's House of Horror is the only horror podcast on the internet. And with that said, I will see you guys back here for another episode coming at you very, very soon. So take care and stay spooky.